You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show on what was a long layoff for us. It was like 2 weeks since we've been on, and we're right in the middle of reviewing Visions, of course. So, that doesn't, help when you're in the middle. Like, we're pretty much halfway through our Visions reviews, and then we got stuck. Honestly, there was just, like, so much going on with work. This is, like, busy time for us, so, yeah. Unfortunately, we just couldn't make it work too much, but we're here now, and there's actually been a couple of news items that have hit since we were on last. Like, of course, there's the whole re-release of the theatrical version of the original Star Wars. Yep, before it was even called New Hope, 1977. So they're going to restore that, put it out in 2027. So we can only think that maybe they're going to do Empire and Return of the Jedi, perhaps. Yeah, there's just like a lot. Then there's that Fate of the Jedi game, or not Fate of the Jedi, Fate of the Republic.
Fate of the Republic, yeah.
Yeah, that's coming out. So I mean, there are a lot of things that are coming out. That, of course, once we actually get through this whole Visions reviews, we've got. Let's see, this is episode 5, so we got 4 more to go. And then once we do that, we can pretty much return to our regularly scheduled program. Let's see. Ted basically has a bunch of chats. So let me get through these, and then we can start talking about our overall thoughts on it. And then, we can get into it like usual. So Ted starts out by saying, it more so than any other felt like a fully developed world of characters and events. He said, it just came across with a lot of very specific and well-played characters, as though the people who made this developed an entire series Bible for it, and this could serve as the first of a 65 to 100 episode run. Then he says, think of classics from the 80s like Thundercats, He-Man, Thunder the Barbarian, an episode that reflects that it's part of this larger story for all this cast that is set in the Star Wars universe. By the way, that's kind of the animation style it had too. Is that sort of He-Man, Thunder, stuff like that. Yep. Then he says, but not a part of the Skywalker saga core canon. And then, of course, which is what a lot of people say is exactly what we need. And yeah, I mean, to be clear, it's funny because at first, again, we just rewatched the episode. That's why we're a little late coming on, actually, because we wanted to rewatch it before coming on tonight. Because, frankly, it's been like 2 weeks since we've seen it, because we were ready to review it then.
Right.
And then, you got sick. My schedule got crazy. Your schedule got crazy. And this is the first time we were able to connect. So, we've been out of it for a little while. So we actually wanted to rewatch it again so it was fresh in our minds. But I remember when I first saw it, at first I'm like, ooh, I don't know. We got this like weird Teddy Ruxpin like, bear droid. We've got this little droid that looks like a piece of candy corn.
Yeah.
There's like, I don't know, but I have to say that I remember at the time that I watched it, I even started thinking like, man, you know what? This might actually be my favorite Visions episode of all time. Simply because of what Ted is alluding to, that it is a very fleshed out story with characters that have a lot of depth. It felt like something that, wasn't just a little one-off experimental, hey, let's do Star Wars anime. I mean, I was really absorbed in the story. I thought that there was really real emotion behind a lot of this stuff. And, it didn't take long for me to get sucked into it. And watching it a second time even reinforced that for me, where I started thinking, The ending of this episode almost gave me like mild Skeleton Crew vibes too.
Man, I was just going to say that, man. That's like literally was going to be like my opening salvo. It says, man, this felt like a Skeleton Crew episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this one. It did feel fully fleshed out. I love the characters. Initially, I thought one of the characters was named Solo, but it was really named Sola.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. But the fact that, he was kind of like, a little henchman for, which I call like the demented Darkwing Duck, because that's exactly who he kind of looked like to me.
He does.
The whole pirate.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of looked like weird... that, or like some Egyptian, like that, Or
Anubis. That's the dog looking
right,
god.
right. And then
Egyptian god.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what he reminded me of. And then of course that little Twi'lek or whatever was like Harley Quinn,
I was just about to say, like, yeah, she was totally a ripoff of Harley Quinn. Even when she was holding that bat, like, kind of behind, I was like,
I know.
Okay.
I was
like,
all right, let's get a live action version of this and have Margot Robbie sit in, David, of course, says, hello, gentlemen, it's Star Wars Dad, to get that in there before we, got too wrapped up.
But yeah, man, I mean, I think this was a really fleshed out. At first, I was kind of thinking, like, this is about to be stupid.
Yes.
And then, but then when they got into the meat of the story, I was just like, you know what? This is actually kind of cool. This is his devotion to, his giant teddy bear. But it was more like, there was the remnants of, it was basically this droid is a guardian that's kind of shaped like a cuddly teddy bear of Yuko. Who was the main character, and because the parents, were smugglers, but they ended up getting sick and passing away, and this pirate came looking for the parents, but the parents were already deceased, and so he wanted the treasure that the he thought the smugglers had took, and they go on this whole adventure trying to find the treasure, but then also Yuko's trying to find Billy, which is the name of the bear droid type thing.
Which is really hilarious. Weird because you got like Yuko and Sola and then Billy.
Billy, right, exactly.
It's almost like they're kind of like, all right, man, we need to throw an American name in there because this is where.
But it's probably spelled like differently, like Billi or something.
It could very well be. I mean, who knows?
But then, what was really cool is that, the little Billy had a microwave pretty much built into his torso. So it was kind of very, I don't want to say avant-garde, but it was kind of like that in a way. But I really did enjoy the storytelling, though. They did tell a really good story. Even with the flashback, I thought the whole show was about to be kind of in that black and white thing. But then it, pops out of that, and then now we're in a, Technicolor, if you will. And so now I was like, all right, we're getting into the story, and even the turn of Sola, he's kind of like this scavenger kid, almost kind of like an Aladdin. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Ezra in a way, and then. Realizes like, hey, you guys aren't just doing this. Like you lied to me. You told me that you were just doing this, and this is really your guys' plan. I'm not okay with this, and so now he tries to make it right. Tries to save Yuko, and it was like I said, it was just a really, really well done story. So I'm actually surprisingly really happy at this episode. This was actually a really cool episode.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and that's the thing, speaking of Sola, one of the things that was really intriguing to me was the fact that, he goes into basically that cantina where his dad's working, and it's kind of weird because it's almost like his dad has no real interest or whatever, it's kind of like Sola's getting into all this trouble, and his dad's just like, whatever.
He's the Al Bundy of space parents. Like,
exactly.
Where's the kid? I don't know.
Are you getting into trouble again? Is that basically it? Because now, at the end of the episode, he's about to go off in the ship with these. And my original thought, because, he was walking off, and then, of course, Billy and Yuko were going to, do their thing. And then they're like, no, you're part of the family now, too. And I'm thinking, okay, on
He
one
has a
hand,
family.
that's cool. Right. That's the thing. It's like, on one hand, that's great, and that's what you want to see. But because, see, if they had never had the scene with Sola's dad in there, then I think that maybe, unless they want to tell some other story later on, I think it would have posed a lot less questions for me, because he's about to go off on this, and you're you're basically thinking in your head like, well, hold on. It's the dad. See, at least with Skeleton Crew, the parents wondering what happened to their kid was very much a focal point in the story.
Yeah.
Which I actually thought was refreshing, because you see this all the time with a lot of these kid-oriented shows where the kids are off and, doing whatever, and you're like, well, wait a minute, we're the parents. Or it's no different than, you see a lot of these action movies where, the good guys and the bad guys are like, shooting each other in the middle of like a city block or something, and you're thinking, okay, why aren't the cops coming? It's like,
Right.
in what universe would you not have like an entire police force coming down on you? But, obviously it's the suspension of disbelief. Whereas Skeleton Crew actually made what would be reasonable part of the story. Again, you're forced to suspend a little bit of disbelief here, because now this kid's going to go off, and it's like, well, is his dad ever going to wonder? Unless that scene was to establish that his dad really didn't care either way.
Yeah. Or unless, it was a ruse, to like, hey, Dad, wink, wink, because he's not supposed to be in there. But,
yeah,
I don't know. But the thing I wondered is that guy kind of moved and sounds like the guy who worked at the cantina on A New Hope. So I'm wondering if this is like a younger version of him, or
like if it's supposed to be. Well, that's the other.
Is that supposed to be him, but maybe like a younger or a different version of him?
Well, I guess the problem. See, the problem with some of the Visions episodes, really quite a bit of them. Some of them they actually say, okay, this is where it takes place. Now, if I remember correctly, when we started this review, not today's review, but when we started with episode 1, one of the things that we went over was this particular season or volume, because it's actually volume 3, not season. We call it season, but it's really volume, right? They did establish like the period of time in the proper Star Wars timeline when it takes place. Of course, I don't remember, but part of the problem that I wish that they had was that was not an external reference. I wish that each of these episodes would maybe give you, and some of them do. Don't get me wrong. Some of them actually do give you some context on when they take place and what era and so on. But episodes like this, they don't. You're left wondering. There's no clue in the galaxy at all. And in fact, one of the things that is really fascinating about this is that they did, and that's why Skeleton Crew is such a good reference too, is because it actually felt like Star Wars without having a lot of Star Wars-y things in it. Other than the settings. You didn't really have Imperial troopers or, anything to indicate the Empire. So you didn't have anything, like you couldn't tell by the design of the troopers what era you were in.
Right.
You couldn't tell by, the nature of any of the missions. You couldn't tell by the Republic. You couldn't tell by anything, because most of the things in this episode was very nondescript, to be honest. So because of that, I don't think it's a younger version of that bartender, simply because I don't think that it takes place that early in the canon. Again, I know these are non-canon, episodes or whatever, but just as far as the timeline goes. So it's tough to say.
Yeah, I mean, and either way, I think the focal point, of it all is the story, and I think although it would be cool, that'll be a nice nugget to know where in the timeline we fall with some of these stories. It's not. I don't think it's always completely necessary.
Well, it's especially not necessary because none of them are canon, so who cares?
Exactly. So yeah, exactly.
If it was a canonized thing, then and I still wouldn't say it'd be like super important, but it'd be nice to know.
Right. Um. But yeah, I like some of the story tropes that they put in here. The focus on family, like we said, it was very reminiscent of a skeleton crew. Even to like the little baby, triceratops looking, almost look like Baby Bop.
Oh yeah.
Character
Mm-hmm.
had that whole kid, little kid adventure type thing. Even them
Well,
going into space with Billy is just still like, all right, these kids are just. Oh, would you like me to show you how to fly the spaceship? Like they're probably like 6 or 7 years old.
it
Like,
was refreshing in a way that you didn't have the typical, no, you're too, that kind of thing. It's like he's just like, hey man, you want to check this stuff out? But here's the interesting part, and this just dawned on me because
mhm,
obviously the ending had a very heavy skeleton crew vibe. But if you actually think back to the storyline, even like what you're talking about, there's a lot of other things in there, right? You got a smuggler who's after a treasure, who
yep,
meets up with the kids, who's trying to get the kids to get him the treasure. I mean, it's
yep. Manipulation of the kids and
right. I mean,
all that. Yeah.
it's almost like, the more that we talk about this and the more that I think about it, I'm like, man, did these guys see Skeleton Crew and been like, hey, let's do this?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a story like if they did season 2 of Skeleton Crew. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be mad if they did something like this. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, it would be
um,
cool. Here,
this is
let me get this
oh, go
comment
ahead.
in from David real quick. He says, love the episode. The old man and the robot was a beast. Cut that first Sith in half, and he wasn't no pushover. Even the dad was a G. The story was simple and easy to follow. Unlike this comment.
uh, great,
I had
awesome.
to. I had to. I
Yeah, I
know.
know. I don't. Um, are we talking about the same episode?
Yes, that was kind of where I was
I
going.
mean, yeah, I know, because I'm like the old man and the robot. Like,
And the dad? Well,
yeah.
the dad, if it was Sola, the old man and the robot. Oh, the dog god looking thing, the smuggler.
Oh,
Yeah,
Darkwing Duck, basically.
yeah,
um,
and he was. I mean, I do want to point out that I do think that that was a really good character. That he's one of the things that I think Visions is really good at doing, and this even goes back to Volume One, is they're really good at coming up with compelling villains.
yeah. The other thing is, not just the villains, but the type of villains. They have their own vibe. So it always fits them, right?
Yeah,
So when we look at like Vader and Palpatine, they're very corporate. It's an empire, so it's very you have failed me for the last time. You uh, we have to get this thing back on schedule. Like it's very clinical and very corporate. But then like when you run into like smugglers or in this case pirates, you have a guy like this, but then you also have a guy like Jude Law's character. What was he? What was his name? Uh,
wow. Uh,
because didn't
wow.
he keep changing his name?
Well, yeah, but
That's why it's escaping me because he always kept.
yeah, but I mean, think about it. We can't
He
remember
went.
any of them. It's like this guy had like about 6 names or something. I can't think of a single one.
It was like Captain something.
Well, there was the captain one, which I think is his actual character. Um,
But when you think about like Hondo, um, he's his own character, and he's hilarious. But you can tell that he's snaky and um, conniving. But then you have people like on the like Beckett, same way, Smuggler, um, Jod Jod Nah Naywood. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's it. Jod Naywood.
We
I
kept
saying
saying
that
this.
3 times fast.
Exactly. That's what the
But
joke we made
but he
last
was
time.
Captain somebody though.
Yeah, but yeah, I think and that's a cool thing about the characters when you're developing characters within Star Wars. The personalities that they give him. Like this guy kind of had like a somewhat of a Dooku-ish because he was very kind of regal in a way. However, he was very composed and poised, but yet he had that sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like, well, if you already know what I want, why are you standing here? Like I love that. Like, just he kind of had that snarky attitude towards things. Um, but yeah, I love the fact that they can create these different types of characters for their according to their profession, because smugglers don't always sound like pirates, and pirates don't sound like Sith, and or an Imperial. They
Yeah,
all
there's
kind of have
nuances.
that.
Yeah,
There's those nuances, and they all
between each
fit
one.
within their thing. Like, when you're talking to, Captain Nita, he's very, yes, sir. He's shoulders are back. He's very, militant about things because he's in the military. But then, or a Tarkin, same way, But then when you dealing with, an Asajj Ventress, she kind of has her own thing, and even Asajj is different than Maul, and Maul is different from even within these characters, like they have their own personality, but yet they still kind of fit within the realm of what it is that they do. So I think Star Wars does a really good job of that.
Well, and I mean, and to me, I think that all the studios that comprise of Visions do an even better job in a lot of cases than a lot of the Star Wars projects that we've seen. I mean, that was really the point that I was making, because Visions actually seems to dial in those nuances even more effectively than even the proper Star Wars. Part of the reason for that, I think, is because they're not necessarily worried about, making $1 billion at the box office, or,
Hmm.
you know, boosting subscribership on Disney Plus or something. I mean, they're doing it for the pure art. Now, of course, one of the things that's nice about when a company is trying to pay attention to commerce is that you might get more accessible storylines.
Hmm.
That's the negative side, if you want to call it that, to Visions, is the fact that Visions is really leaning on the artistic part of it. And so you get certain episodes where you're like, I don't know what
What
I
am I
just
watching?
saw,
Yeah.
but
What
I
am I
mean, it was
watching?
beautiful. But I mean, I don't know what this is. But then every once in a while, you get stuff like this. And this is the kind of thing where, again, it's not too artsy in its animation. Like Ted pointed out, it's very much like a lot of the 80s
80s.
filmation cartoons where,
It, but
you
but
know,
did you notice that in some points, like when they did the overhead shot of Mos Eisley, or when they showed the waterfall when they were leaving out, like the animation kind of changed a little bit. Like it looked more like 3D animation.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, a little bit. And primarily, yeah, the those two shots that you mentioned in particular, I could see
yeah,
definitely had that vibe to them. And I mean, it is weird that there were shots that there was kind of like what you would call the middle of the road thing, which is what most of the stuff was anchored upon. But then you would have other shots that were like really 2D, Filmation style.
Yeah.
Because Filmation Studio, they're the guys responsible for He-Man. They're the guys, I think they made Thundercats. I'm pretty sure they made Thunder the Bird. They were a pretty big studio back then. And they had a definitive style of animation, of 2D animation. And this is very reminiscent of that. But at times, they would also stray into something that would borderline the 3D element to it. So, yeah. But the nice thing about it, and these are a couple of things that I think are worth pointing out. One, speaking of the animation, it was appropriate for the story, and it didn't take me out of it.
Right.
That's one of the problems that Visions has had since Volume 1, is that you would get those episodes where it's not even the story or, the execution or whatever. It's just purely the animation that you're just like, man, I can't do this.
It's either too busy or too weird, and
I
can't even get into. I can't even follow because it's so jarring.
Right.
Absolutely.
So this was nice for that reason. And then the second thing was, even though it was clearly had more of a, let's just call it a younger audience demographic. Excuse me. It wasn't too. It was like it was very much like Skeleton Crew that way.
Yeah.
It had that sort of fun, silly, kid-like thing going, but it wasn't jarring, and it wasn't enough to take you out of the story, and it wasn't over the top.
Yeah, and I think you have to always try to find that balance of, and I think this episode did that. You found moments in where the comedy was appropriate. It wasn't a whole lot of comedy in this.
Yeah, it's true. That's another.
But it was point. When it was put in there, it was like always at the right moment, and so the timing of those things were great.
Hey, you know what else is weird? I just thought of another correlation to Skeleton Crew. I mean, it's crazy how both times that I was watching it, the only time that I was triggered on Skeleton Crew was the end. But now that I think about it, it's like Skeleton Crew is all over this episode. Like, another thing is you had the droid turning evil for a time. And then the main kid character had to bring him back.
Yeah, SM33.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and even the Yuko kind of reminds you, it's kind of a nice blend of Whim and Neil.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, you kind of have that wide-eyed adventure family thing, but then this kind of like the emotional stuff of Neil, where Neil's our little elephant friend. He was always kind of like scared and hesitant about stuff, but then Wim was always the one that kind of wanted to just go and rush in and do stuff. So you kind of had a little bit of that going on, but then on the flip side of that, who's that? Let me see. Let me see if I can pull up.
Yeah, you're trying to think of like the female character, and because Sola kind of has.
Sola was definitely kind of had that vibe that.
I know, I can't remember her name.
Yeah. Like
it's like, as big of a fan of Skeleton Crew as I am and I was, it's remarkable how I remember the episode, I remember the stories and all that, but I don't remember a lot of the characters. And we did a whole review show on that thing too. Where we reviewed Fern. Yes.
Fern.
Yes.
Yes. That's a lot of times, they don't always use their names in the show heavily, so they just start talking to them. So you just, at least in the, the original trilogy, they're always going like Han, Where's Han? Where's Luke?
And we know in the sequel trilogy, we wouldn't
We
forget
know
Rey's
Rey.
name.
Yeah,
Rey!
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Thanks to
Finn is
John
yelling
Boyega.
at.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no
But yeah,
forgetting that.
yeah. So when you in the films, they kind of say their names a lot when they're addressing each other or asking about the other person. So they kind of get ingrained. But like some of these other shows, they kind of just start talking to each other, and it's like, okay, you know. Unless there are characters like Neo that really stick out because he was so cute.
Yeah.
That is just like,
Right.
all right, you can't forget that one.
No. And I mean, whim is easier to remember because it's kind of like I'm on a whim,
Yep.
But I mean, there are times where this is a problem that I have too with the Disney era Star Wars. Other than something like Rogue One and Andor and stuff like that, you have the problem of longevity. It's like some of these shows are really good for the moment, but then you just are like, okay, whatever. And I mean, look, that's sort of how things are now anyway. It seems like things are done for a very immediate reaction and then you move on.
Mm-hmm.
Music is like that, where it used to be that, it would start to get momentum and it would climb the charts and then eventually it would reach a peak and then, it would fall off. But I mean, that could take like a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all about the first week numbers and then by the second week it just falls off. Same thing with movies, so I don't think
Yep.
that things are made to necessarily have that longevity and that long shelf life, if you will. And unfortunately, I think Star Wars has even gotten into that point. It used to be, again, and I think some of that is because of just the sheer number of things. But you could have made that argument with the expanded universe. I mean, there's a ton of those books that came out and we all remembered because they were characters that were really worth living with for a while. And that's what makes this episode of Visions in particular so appealing, is I think that it could have that kind of longevity. They could literally spin off an entire series on these guys. And I think that people would be on board. It would be interesting to actually find out like the ratings for each of these episodes. And I mean, maybe it would be more difficult because it's not released on a week-to-week basis. Although I'm sure the analytics are there somewhere. I mean, people know, at the very least, there's probably some fan reaction. I mean, the funny thing is, we're one of the only shows, good or bad. Yeah. Nobody,
Right.
It's not like anybody is really reviewing this. Like, the few that review the show, they just do it in like one big chunk. They review all 9 episodes in one go and then they go. They're not doing like some week-to-week individual episode type of review. Maybe there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
And,
possibly.
I mean, even our views on these episodes, like when we do our Visions reviews, they're not, I can't say that they're like super low, because I mean, I think there's a built-in audience now that we have, that people are just, they're just interested in the conversation. They don't necessarily care the particular talk. It's just kind of like, okay, these guys are going to be talking about something Star Wars related. I'm on board for that, whatever it is.
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes, I do worry about when we do review something that maybe isn't as popular, and it's like, oh, we're going to spend like 2 months on this. I mean, you can see the unsubscribing going on as we speak. Like, oh, Visions again? These guys are terrible.
Exactly. Get me out of here.
Right. Okay. So David says, the little girl was likable. She was a strong female character without the unlikable traits that make you want to vomit. Very well put.
Hey, amen to that.
Yes. The animation was good for a change. The action was exciting. Great force usage. I don't remember any force usage.
Yeah, there wasn't any use of the force in this episode.
Which you could spin to say that it was great usage of the force. There was none.
Oh, yeah.
And that was refreshing.
The absence of it, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that that's something again, there's always something to where somebody is always force sensitive, or they do
Hmm.
like some little thing that wink wink, this person probably has the force. It's like, look, we don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also it just shows once again that Star Wars is can be Star Wars without it. You can tell these stories without, and there's so many different um, groups of characters that you can utilize that have nothing to do with the Jedi or Sith, like pirates, smugglers, bounty hunters, um, code crackers, and there's all sorts of stuff that you can deal with um, within the Star Wars universe that have absolutely nothing to do with the Jedi, the Sith, the Force, any of it. Is you can just do. I mean that's why we were so bummed when uh Patty Jenkins movie kind of went off the rails because we were looking for like Top Gun and Star Wars. Like I wanted to see that, and you're just talking about pilots who were part of the rebellion or the resistance, depending on which. But yeah, that's compelling. I want to see stuff like that, and I think other people will want to see things like that. Not that they don't like the Sith and the Jedi thing, but I think it's a nice palate cleanser sometimes where you take that sip of water before you taste another wine, if you will. To kind of like, all right, we refreshed, we've got something different, something new, and then we can come back to another. If you have another really good Jedi Sith compelling story, okay, we'll watch that too. So
Well, in
I
addition
like when they
to
do it right.
yeah, and in addition to being a palate cleanser, like you said, for the hardcore and even deeper casual fans, the other thing that it does, or that it could provide, is a nice gateway,
Hmm.
right? So instead of just a break, it could actually be a gateway to get people into Star Wars, because Star Wars is not the cultural phenomenon, universal thing that it once was. I mean, it kind of is in the legacy aspect of it, but it's almost like a plane that's lost the engine power. It's still coasting, but it is descending. It
Hmm.
might be very incremental, but at some point it's going to crash out
Yeah,
unless
it's just
you restore the power to the engines, right? So I mean,
just riding
unless
the jet stream.
yeah, and I mean, so once the next couple of generations die off, like 3, 4 generations from now, Star Wars will not be what it is even today, unless they do something. I mean, ironically, I think it's today that's the 8-year anniversary of The Last Jedi.
Wow,
Yeah,
8 years already.
I
Wow.
know.
Yeesh.
The movie
I'm
that started to kill the franchise.
right.
And I mean, if you think about where Star Wars was before The Last Jedi versus where it is now, I mean,
Yeah. Yeesh.
and it's one of those things where I honestly believe that it can be reignited. And I think that one of the ways that you do that is what we're talking about right now, where maybe you have something that's more universal appeal. You have like a Top Gun in space. But okay, now it's using Star Wars characters and X-Wings.
Hmm.
And but it's the same kind of grounded storytelling. It's just the setting and the characters are a little different. So I mean, instead of like, Rooster and Maverick and, Iceman and all that, you've got, Red 5 and like Gold Leader, that kind of thing. But I mean, it can basically be something that you are being drawn into the universe without realizing it, because I mean, honestly, for some people, man, you're not going to get them there with the Jedi and the Sith and Vader and Yoda and all these other guys, and it's just a little too silly for some people. But you give them
Yeah.
something that's like a Top Gun or like a Saving Private Ryan, like in the case of like Andor, it's like some
Rogue
political
One
thriller
is.
or
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Okay, you can then get them into the universe, and then you can start to maybe introduce them to some stuff. Because if you think about it, the reason why Star Wars ignited in the first place was because A New Hope, if you think about it, it didn't even go that deep into the whole Jedi Sith thing. In fact, I remember when I got my Darth Vader action figure in 1977, I think it was like later 70, it could have even been 78. And I remember reading the box and it said Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Right. They never talked about it in A New Hope at all.
No. In fact, if you think about it, there's very little Force usage. There's talk about the Force,
Mm-hmm.
kind of,
Yeah.
but there's really very little Force usage. There's a little bit of talk about the Jedi. There's no talk about the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
There's, none of that. It's basically a very grounded movie. It's like a very grounded plot that would appeal to a lot of people. It's a fun adventure. It's a swashbuckling kind of thing, if anything else, with characters that are fleshed out, with a world that's fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what started the whole thing in the first place.
What I
Now.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that, in a lot of ways, servicing the hardcore fan, I can understand why they're careful to do that because, now you got to really get into the weeds of a lot of the mystical stuff and it could lose people.
Yeah. No, I just had a thought. I would love. This will be a good show topic, actually. We have to remember to do this after we're done with Visions. We have to write this down somewhere. But I would love to see a live action version of Bad Batch.
Yeah, that would be cool. And look, this is a good time to plug this, actually. You can do it. You can write it down in our Discord.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have, there's the you and I only channel in the Discord that only you and I could see. It's like Death Star plans or I don't know. I forgot what it's called. Forgot a lot of things today. Whatever it is, it's purposely designed because I keep trying to make Discord like the central hub for all things our channel. That's why there's so many different, channels in our server, is because there's something in there for everybody. There's stuff for general talk, for, Star Wars stuff, for all kinds, like every category you can imagine, different forums, even, the voice lobby where, if you guys are playing a game or some particularly Call of Duty, you could jump in on that, and there I will be. So, I mean, there's a lot, but then there's also the more like the war room for us, you and I, to actually plan out some of this stuff, because a lot of times, if we're texting back and forth, that could get lost, because in addition to that, then there's also just anything else that we're talking about, and then you're trying to scroll through stuff like, hey, what was that? What was that thing you sent me like 3 months ago that we were gonna do a thing on? It's
Right.
gonna get lost. But if it's living inside the Discord server, then it's easier to access and it's easier for both of us to do it. So that's kind of the plug for not only us to use it, but for everybody else. In the description of every one of these shows that we do, you can join our Discord and we're there. In fact, right
Mm-hmm.
now, Grandmaster has been giving us a bunch of spoilers on The Mandalorian and Grogu, and they're pretty wild, so you want to check that out. I posted something about that Fate of the Republic game. Yeah, so I mean, we're fairly active on there, and of course, the more people that chime in, the more active we will be. So that's just a thought. So you can write that down in there, and then that way we'll remember it. But yeah, absolutely, a live action Bad Batch, that'd be cool. Now here, I think we solved the mystery with David. He said the last guy died from being caught in midair and dragged to his fiery death. Did I watch the wrong episode? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because we hadn't done one in 2 weeks. So, and they've dropped all the
Oh,
episodes.
yeah, that's right. So he's probably ahead.
Yeah, he's probably thinking we're on episode 7 or something.
Like season finale. Like, oh,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
But thanks for the spoiler though.
Well, here's what we can't write down. Our ratings for this episode. What would you give it?
Well, I'm gonna give it like a 8.5.
I'm with you on that.
Like
Actually,
I said,
I might
man,
even push it. I might even push it to a 9.
9. I know. I was thinking the same thing.
I
Like,
might have
yeah,
to push it to a 9 just because I think the story was really
it
good,
was. It was really
and it was
compelling, and I might add, ever since Volume 2, we basically stopped that whole like grading
grading
on a
on a
visions
curve.
curve, where it's kind of like,
Right.
well, really it's a 3, but for visions it's like a
Since it's
7.
like 7, right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really done that since like I think the first volume is the only time that we really were doing that. Maybe kind of getting our feet wet with it. Like in volume 2, I think it was like certain episodes we would like, or we gave both. We'd be like, okay, well, I don't know. I would give it more like a 5, but for Visions, I'd say it's like a 7.5 or something. But yeah, this season or volume, no curve necessary. I'm happy to say.
Yeah.
I'm actually starting to get to the point to where I've actually kind of warmed up to, like, I'm starting to go, hey, kind of looking forward to see what they might do in volume 4 versus what I used to be like, where it would be like, oh man, they're coming out with this again, which means we're going to review it. Just get through it. It'll be all right.
All right.
But yeah, I could go 9 easily for this one. And of course Ted says 9 for sure on this one too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course we know that David really enjoyed it. Well, we know he enjoyed the episode that he watched.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting which one it is. It could be the next one.
Possibly.
Maybe. I don't know, honestly. But just for the record, as it says, we're on episode 5, which is Yuko's Treasure. So that's the one that we've been reviewing today. And again, they have all dropped. I mean, you guys can go and watch like all, 9 of them. We just decided rather than, again, there's not a lot of channels that are even touching Visions like at all. But the ones that are, they generally are just doing like all 9. Like, hey, we're just going to review this series. But for us, even the bad ones, it's like there's enough there, I think, with each episode that it warrants discussion. And so maybe, maybe in some pocket of YouTube, that's how we're known. They're like, oh, those are those Visions guys. Like the only ones that review every single episode. Yeah. Like, how crazy is that? We're probably being laughed at. Jeez, even like Pablo Hidalgo is probably going, can you believe it? These guys are actually reviewing every episode of Visions. We wouldn't even do that. But yeah, the question is, of course, we heard from Ted. David hasn't even watched the right episode, so we'll have to.
We have heard from him.
Yeah, we have heard from him, but we're gonna have to abstain. He's talking about, I think, a few episodes ahead. The question, of course, is what do you guys think? And, the other thing, I'll put up a poll too, because, we're in for the long haul. We're going to review all 9 of these things. But, in the future, I don't know. I think I did do this poll once before. Like, it was back when I still wasn't looking forward to doing this. I think it was when Volume 2 came out. And I ended up putting a poll, like, it was really like I was trying to get out of it. I'm kind of like, hey, would you guys rather us just review, like, just the entire series, or do you want us to keep doing episode by episode? And of course, they voted episode by episode. Made me want to, like,
never give them the option.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's our viewers.
Yeah. It's our viewers,
and they're our
we
bosses.
serve at the pleasure.
Yeah,
Right, we serve at the pleasure of the viewing community.
Exactly. So, to that end, I mean, we'll continue to do it. And, I mean, honestly, now I don't really have a problem with it because I've gotten to the point to where, I mean, even the episodes where I'm kind of like, I still don't mind talking about them. Whereas before I was kind of like, is this going to hurt? So I remember there's, At first I thought there was a couple of episodes that were only like 20 minutes because we're like, I don't even like this. I don't know what else to say about it. But then when I went back and I didn't watch them, obviously. Well, actually, that didn't sound good. You guys should watch them. But I didn't rewatch my own episodes. Let me put it that way. I just wanted to see how long they all were. And they were all long. I mean, some of them were like an hour and 15 or 20 minutes. I'm like, really? But then again, I think that was also back because Ronaldo was a really big fan of Visions, and he would be arguing with us like about the episode for like 30 minutes of the show or something. Still wonder what happened.
That's true.
But again, it's about what you guys think. So let us know in the comment section what you thought of Visions Volume 3, Episode 5, entitled Yuko's Treasure. You guys know where we stand. You know where Ted stands. I'm sure David will like it once he sees it. And then again, next week, we'll go back and do Episode 6, which I think is called like The Smuggler or something. It's something along those lines.
The Smuggler.
Yeah. So, looking forward to that. Make sure you catch us when we do that one. That should be fun. Because we only got like 4 more of these, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then once that's done, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program. Again, check our Discord server. There's even a space to suggest future topics. So if you guys are like, okay, these guys, it's kind of like when, you go to a place that has like some sort of, like touch tunes or some jukebox type of service.
Yeah.
And people keep playing songs that you don't like. And normally you wouldn't even go to the thing and put songs in, but you're so sick of what somebody else is playing that you start putting your own selections in. You could do that with us. You could be like, okay, I'm not really feeling these topics. Here's topics that I would like you guys to talk about. We respond to that. Put it in the comment section. Go to the Discord. There's a spot for that. And let us know. And of course, as always, for the YouTube algorithm, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell, because again, look at our schedule the last 2 weeks. You never know when we're going to be on. Poor Ted. He was just hanging on, writing on our head, our head-to-head Star Wars community Facebook group, hoping everything was okay. So it's good that you guys are good sports about some of these rescheduling that we just have to do out of nowhere. But that's why it's important to hit the notification bell, because if you do that, you'll know when we're going live. All right, so, I don't know, is that it? Good of the order?
That's it.
All right,
Good
cool.
of the order.
All right, well, till next week, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.